Hey, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me. Drop those blue hearts in the chat if you can hear my voice. Thank you. We're going to have some background music today, y'all. Let me know if that's too loud. All right, I see the blue hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me know if this is too loud. Y'all know I talk loud anyway, so it shouldn't be too loud, but let me know and I'll turn it down if it's too loud, okay? We're going to go ahead and give y'all this update on the Karmelo Anthony case because there's a lot of information being put out there, and a lot of it is just straight up made up, falsified, pulled out the air, stuffed up a turkey, and all of that good stuff. She said the volume is fine. Okay, thank you so very much. Y'all come on in. Tag somebody, share this live stream. We're going to give the updates of the latest and the greatest. So it may be some from today and some from Saturday. Okay? And it may even be a little bit of Thursday too as well. I got the music playing in the background to keep me from screaming loud and just going with the flow, okay? Because it's not necessary. She said, thank God, because baby, this is confusing. Yes, I know. Y'all come on up in here. Hit those thumbs up buttons for me, please, and thank you. I do have a goal set for this video, and I will be going live after this video on something else. Okay, I already have that video set up as well. If you are interested in the drama between Cora and her ex drama queen, Dean is what I'm calling him now. I will be going live about him and his latest live stream after this live is over. So y'all come on in. This shouldn't be too long, about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, an update, because what we're going to do is give you the updates. And then I'm going to ask you guys, what's your take? I actually have a poll going right now. The poll says, hold on one second. I think I asked, who do you think is winning this argument? We'll start with that. Let me pull that up right quick. So just from what you know right now, I have a poll. And the poll says, give me a second. Who's winning the argument? The prosecutor, the defense, or is it a close call? Okay. And I see most of you guys right now, I have 49 votes, and you guys are saying it's a close call. And I'm thinking that you're saying that because you probably don't know the latest as far as what has come out and what has been debunked. I didn't know what to put on the poll because I haven't heard what the defense said. Okay, I got you, Kimberly. That's understanding. Understood. All right, y'all come on up in here. Hit those thumbs up. Let me see where we are with the thumbs up. I have 67. Can I get a few more? Can I get a few more thumbs up? I have 113 watching and 69 thumbs up. Can you just thumbs up this video just to let me know that you are here? She said, I'll wait until you do the commentary. On which one, Reese? On this one? Okay. Oh, okay. I got you. Before you vote. Okay, I got you. So if you guys don't mind hitting that thumbs up, and I'm going to go ahead and get into this commentary. First, let me just go ahead and read my disclaimer. Everything that I say out of my mouth is based on my opinion only. I'm definitely not trying to defame anybody's character. I'm just giving you guys the latest update that I have learned about the Karmelo Anthony case, okay? And for those that are new and don't know what's going on, but you should, unless you live up on the rock, Karmelo Anthony, African-American kid you see on the photo up here, he is on trial right now, being charged with first-degree murder for stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf in the chest back in April of 2025 at a Frisco ISD track meet, okay? It was actually a track event at a, it wasn't a school, but it was a school event that they were at. The prosecutors say that it was a planned, malicious, premeditated murder. and they are going after first degree, which is 25 to life. However, defense said it was self-defense, okay? Said that he was approached and surrounded, outnumbered, and that he was defending himself after Austin put his hands on him, okay? So the state and the defense both agree that Karmelo Anthony was sitting under the tent of Memorial High School, okay, because Karmelo Anthony's school did not have a tent set up for that day's event. So he sat up under the tent, and for a whole year now, a little over a year, we all thought that he sat up under that tent to get out of the rain, okay? Well, testimony has come forth that it wasn't just the rain that Karmelo Anthony was trying to dodge, okay? He was actually under the tent with a friend. He was visiting a friend, okay? I'm not gonna really say names right now because I think at the time all of these kids were like 17 or possibly 18, but I'm not gonna use names other than just Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. I may use his brother name Hunter because that's his brother. However, one of his friends was under that tent and he was visiting his friend. And actually the friend was his girlfriend's cousin. Now, we don't know if it's the real cousin, but you know how people say, hey, that's my cousin, that's my cousin. So his girlfriend cousin was also his friend, was sitting there, and they were actually visiting each other. So when this altercation took place, the so-called friend cousin was there. He was present, and he actually testified against Karmelo Anthony. We'll get to that in a moment, okay? So let me pull my notes, and we're going to get right to the latest and the greatest of this case, all right? So what we left off of, I don't even think that I came and updated you guys on the state closing their case, okay? So after the state called 21 witnesses, because believe it or not, that tent, the canopy that they were sitting under, had quite a few people. It wasn't just like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It was more like 20, upper 20 or so people under that tent, okay? So it must have been a pretty big tent that day, or a lot of people was trying to get out of the rain. So 21 witnesses for the state came forward and they testified. Some of them said that they felt like Karmelo Anthony instigated this whole thing, okay? They were friends of Austin and Hunter, and they said they were definitely for the state, saying that it was not self-defense, that they feel like it was murder. Now, I'm not gonna go into each testimony, but I will summarize it, okay? So some of the testimonies were like, everybody wanted Karmelo Anthony out of the tent. They saw that he was there. He didn't belong there, and they wanted him out. And they painted the picture that Austin asked him to get out of the tent, and said about 15 other people were asking asking Karmelo Anthony to get out of the tent too. So it wasn't just, allegedly, per these witnesses, it wasn't just Austin and his brother Hunter asking Karmelo to leave. It was other teammates as well, right? Asking Karmelo Anthony to leave from under the tent. So Karmelo was saying, no, I'm not leaving, make me. Because he was kind of like taken back, like, wait a minute, what is this about? Like, why are you telling me to leave when you're not telling all the rest of these people to leave, okay? Why are you asking me to leave? So nevertheless, the witnesses said they were asking him to leave. He had his hand already in the bag, and he provoked Austin to put hands on him, right? Some of the witnesses even tried to say that Hunter wasn't even near the altercation, which I don't believe that, because Hunter said out of his own mouth, he's the one that initiated it. He's the one that turned around and asked Karmelo, what are you doing here? However, some of the witness testimonies were that Hunter was several benches, I guess if you want to call it benches, down in the stadium, right? Like not even close to where the incident took place, like as if he was steps down, like wasn't even there. And I think they said that because they don't want to make it seem like it was 2-on-1. That's how I gathered that, okay? However, some of the witnesses actually said that he was right there and that he wasn't the only one right there. It was other teammates standing up there as well, okay? Now, several of the witnesses said that Karmelo Anthony was sitting down, whereas Austin, his brother, and other teammates were standing up over Karmelo. So now you have a kid that went to go visit his friend under another school's tent, being, I'm not going to say surrounded. I've heard L-shape and I've heard U-shape, okay? But nevertheless, somebody to your front, somebody to your sides, okay? So I could see where Karmelo probably felt threatened, right? So they said he had his hand in the bag, and when Austin was like, you need to leave, he was like, make me. I'm not leaving. Make me. So when Austin went to push Karmelo, Karmelo said, put your hands on me again and see what happens, or something to that effect, okay? So the prosecutor asked the witnesses, several of them, do you think, or who do you think provoked the altercation, turned it violent? And they said, Karmelo. That hurt Carmelo's case, okay? And it was more than one witness that said that. However, when the defense did cross-examination, several of the witnesses, more than one, at least 3, changed their story. What they told the police the day of the incident and a day or two after the incident was something totally different than what they said on the stand. And the defense pointed that out. Even Karmelo Anthony's friend denied even knowing Karmelo. Well, he said that we wasn't friends, and the defense had to actually show proof to this young fella that they indeed did know each other. They hung out with each other. They were friends. They were family friends. They did things outside of just meeting up for track. So I was trying to determine, I said, why in the world would his friend lie and say he didn't even know this guy? And I'm going to say, because of his age, 17 or 18 years old, I think the parents had something to do with that. The parents wanted their child to distance themselves from Karmelo Anthony simply because of fear. Karmelo Anthony family has been receiving death threats and things of that nature. And I think that family just did not want to have anything to do with Karmelo Anthony nor his family. So they had their son lie on the stand denouncing that they were even acquaintanceships, okay? So the defense came back and was like, isn't this you right here in this picture? Isn't this you with him? Hanging out with him, doing this, doing that, or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, like now I remember, because he had amnesia prior, saying that he don't remember ever hanging out with Karmelo Anthony. Nevertheless, so as you can see, some of the witnesses changed their statements and the defense called that out. So let me continue. So like I said, it was 21 witnesses for the state. Defense only had 6 witnesses, all right? And I'll tell you what their summary of what their witnesses said. But nevertheless, let me just say this right quick. This case is not about whether Karmelo Anthony stabbed Austin or not. We all know that. He even admitted it, that he did, okay? But he also said it was self-defense. There was witnesses, which included some of the coaches, that said that right after the incident, Karmelo Anthony ran up to a coach, told the coach what he did. And the coach said, if you did this, this is going to change your life forever. If this young fella passes away. And Karmelo Anthony says, he's not going to pass away, because Karmelo Anthony didn't think that what he did was actually KI'd someone. He thought he just poked him and took off running, right? However, they said that Karmelo Anthony broke down and started crying in the coach's arms. The coach even said that he cried himself as well, right? So right there, that alone showed that he immediately had remorse. And there was more witnesses that actually said, agreed, or not agreed, but confirmed that Karmelo Anthony was crying afterwards. Now, let me just say this right quick. Let me back up. So when Karmelo Anthony stabbed Austin, right, he took off running, and some of the kids actually was running behind him, okay, and pointing their finger and pointing at him and things of that nature, okay? So that right there tells me that he actually felt like they were going to gang up on him, okay? And I believe that had he not gotten away, he probably would have gotten jumped. Now, that's just my speculation, right? However, he ran straight to the coach, told the coach what was going on. And the coach consoled him and passed him off to another coach, and to the police officers came, okay? So he wasn't trying to flee like some of the talk out there in the streets that he was trying to get away, or I heard that he was trying to blend in with the rest of the crowd because he didn't want to be identified. I just don't believe that's true, because even while on the phone, when the police officer was calling it in or making his notes, he said, "It's not alleged, I did it. It's not alleged, I did it." So he admitted to stabbing Austin, but he immediately said, he put his hands on me. It was self-defense, okay? It was self-defense. So nevertheless, so let's talk about what happened today, all right? So the state rested its case last week. The defense started their case last week, and they had 6 witnesses to come forth. I actually thought the defense was going to go harder, to be honest with you. I really did, and I was really hoping they did. My honest opinion, I don't think they went hard enough. And the reason why I say that, because we heard out of Hunter's own mouth that his brother grabbed Karmelo Anthony's book bag. I don't even think that came up. And when I was talking to Judge Thelma the other day, she said that the defense couldn't just bring that up. It had to come out, like one of the witnesses or somebody had to say something about it, and then the defense can elaborate over it, okay? So in a case, during pretrial, before they even get to the trial, the judge says what's allowed to come out and what's not allowed, right? And how it's allowed to come out. So certain things the defense or the state can't even say unless it's brought up some other type of way. Or they say, oh, this is admissible or this is not admissible. So I'm assuming that the book bag being grabbed by Austin was not admissible, because the defense didn't even bring it up. So I'm actually shocked that I have not heard anybody say the defense brung up the book bag, okay? But nevertheless, the defense called 6 witnesses, and even the witnesses that they called, like a few of them wasn't even in, good eyesight of seeing what was going on. They tried to testify saying that they saw the commotion and saying that Karmelo Anthony was surrounded. But then when the state got up and did their cross-examination, they killed that testimony by saying, like, do you remember where you were standing at when you allegedly saw all of this? And pointed out that some of the witnesses, well, at least one that was for Karmelo Anthony, was just too far away to see exactly what was happening, right? Like in real time, to know even what happened, what started it, the words exchanged and things of that nature. So I will say that I'm going to say it like this. It is not a clear cut that this was first degree murder. I still do not believe that it was first degree. I do not believe Karmelo Anthony woke up and said, oh, I'm gonna commit a murder today, right? However, I will say the state looks pretty doggone good as far as painting this as a not self-defense case. However, the defense did raise some serious, doubt of the state, right? And what I mean by that is the defense was able to prove that Karmelo Anthony was sitting down and he was approached first by Hunter and then Austin, okay? And that it was more students than just Austin standing over him while he was still sitting down. However, I think what hurts or what's going to hurt the defense is that more witnesses actually agreed with the state. The state was actually able to get these witnesses to agree that Karmelo Anthony provoked Austin. Okay. Let me read some of my notes here. Oh, let's talk about the tent, right? So some of the students got up and said that, the coach had told them, hey, don't let anybody come in your space. Make sure you, look after your stuff and make sure no one comes over. And basically, the witnesses were making it seem like the coaches were the one that said safeguard your space and don't let anybody come over and invade your area. However, there were some witnesses that said, no, track is not like that, okay? Maybe football and things of that nature, but track, we're kind of more relaxed. We kind of just mingle with each other. We kind of just move around and kind of, people visit other people. So this is not abnormal, right? So like I said, some witnesses were trying to make it seem like Austin and Hunter was just doing the noble thing of telling someone that they were not familiar with, didn't know who he was, that, hey, you don't belong here, you need to leave. And then I think they tried to soften the blow and try to say it wasn't just Austin and Hunter being like bullies or very aggressive, because it was other students too telling Karmelo Anthony, you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave, okay? So that came a thing about whether he belonged under the tent or not, right? Now, it was also a thing that they said that Karmelo Anthony had his hand in his book bag before Austin even, put his hands on him, right? So they testified that Karmelo Anthony already had his hands in his book bag saying, touch me, right? Touch me and see what happens, right? Now let's talk about what helped Karmelo Anthony, right? They did say that Austin touched Karmelo Anthony first. He did put hands on him, but there were some witnesses saying, oh, it was just a light push. It wasn't nothing serious. It was just kind of like a push on the shoulder. Whereas some witnesses were saying that it was kind of a tougher push, meaning that Karmelo Anthony swayed back a little bit. He didn't fall over, but he swayed back. So that helped Karmelo in a sense of now the jurors know that Austin made physical contact first, okay? Another thing that helped Karmelo was that afterwards he showed emotions and he was distraught afterwards. Like, is he, he actually asked the police, is he going to be okay? And he cried in the coach's arms. So showing emotions right after doing something like this shows that this was just, an intense moment, a sudden passion, something happened that, he's not proud of. He didn't go boasting about it like, yeah, I did that. You know what I'm saying? Like something happened and he wasn't too fond of it afterwards, right? And another thing that helped Karmelo is that because his school did not have a tent, his school was the only one out there that did not have a tent. That kind of explains why he was under the tent. One, to get out of the rain, but two, because he was visiting his friend underneath the tent. So he didn't go there to start something, right? Whereas some witnesses actually said they felt like he came to be a troublemaker, right? But some of the witnesses did come up there and was like, no, it wasn't like that. He actually knew someone underneath there, and it was raining outside, so it wasn't that he was just trying to be a troublemaker. Now, the reason why this matters is because this proves that it wasn't just some planned attack that, you know what I'm saying? It's just something that just happened. It was a confrontation, physical contact, and he believed that he was defending himself. And I really do believe that Karmelo thought that he was defending himself when he did that. So it wasn't like he was just sitting up there, like I said, oh, I'm going to get somebody today. I'm going to tear somebody up today. Somebody say something to me, I'm going to take my knife out and I'm going to stab them today. That wasn't the motive. It was actually altercation, confrontation, physical contact, and some fear in there. Now, but let's talk about what hurt Karmelo, y'all. Let me just say this. Self-defense with using deadly force is a high bar. That's different than just self-defense and you was using self-defense and you punched someone and they fell down the bleachers and ended up passing away. Karmelo Anthony used a deadly weapon. So that's a high bar, which means that, you know, the defense would have had to bring it. You know what I'm saying? They would have had to like bring the noise to be able to fight this, right? Right now, the jury has to decide whether Karmelo Anthony believed that it was reasonable for him to use deadly force in that moment, all right? Now, the state is going to argue that even if Austin did touch him, push him, shove him, that does not automatically justify stabbing him in the chest, right? The prosecution is also going to focus on the testimonies of the 21 witnesses that Karmelo Anthony had his hand in the bag and allegedly provoked Austin by saying, touch me and see what happens. Now, the jury will have to sit and figure out, was he scared or was he taunting him? Was he provoking him? Was he looking for a fight? Did he start this argument? Did he start this confrontation? So that's what the juries are going to have to figure out. Now, let me give y'all my opinion. And I'm just going to be straight up from just what I've been hearing. I actually thought that, it was going to be more. I thought that we were going to find out something, let me just tell you what I thought. I thought we was going to find out like Karmelo Anthony was being surrounded. He was being threatened. He was being bullied. Okay. Now, even though I do not believe Karmelo Anthony woke up that morning with, I'm going to chaos somebody today. What I will say is just from the testimonies and just from what's being on the news, what's being covered on the news, and some of the people that's out there, boots on the ground right now, that's attending the case. How it's going on right now and what's being allowed in the courthouse is not looking good for Karmelo Anthony. Now, do I think that he will be found guilty for first degree? I do not. I don't believe he will. But do I believe he's going to walk? No, I don't. I do not believe that he's going to walk. Even though the judge that I did speak with the other day said that they have to find him guilty for first degree or he walks. I don't know if I believe that, right? Not saying that she's a liar, not saying that she doesn't know what she's talking about, but I think the reason why I feel that there would be a lesser charge because the prosecution actually asked that. If he's found guilty, are you okay? He asked the jurors, if he's found guilty, are you okay with finding him guilty on a lesser charge, right? And giving him a lower sentence. The sentence right now that he's facing is 25 to life. And the fact that they asked that, are you okay with having him on a lesser charge? I do believe that they even know that it's not first degree, right? So I kind of believe that manslaughter or even reckless homicide will come out of this, okay? And the witnesses didn't help Karmelo Anthony. You know, they didn't help him at all. And, you know, I don't really think the jury makeup, I know a lot of people are like, oh, they didn't have no blacks on the jury, that's what's going to nail him. I don't think that's it. I think the state put on a good argument. You remember when I told y'all it's not about what you did, it's whether you can prove it in the courts, right? So when the state came out on day one saying that Karmelo Anthony provoked Austin, right? Provoked him. In my opinion, the defense angle should have been to knock that down, that he did not provoke him, that he was defending himself, right? However, even some of the defense witnesses, the witnesses for Karmelo Anthony, the state was able to get them to agree that Karmelo Anthony provoked Austin. That's horrible. Imagine having a witness for you say that your friend, the one that you are testifying for, actually provoked the other guy. That's not good. Of the 6 witnesses, he was able to get some of those witnesses to agree that Karmelo provoked him. Now, some people early on was saying, oh, no, he was just giving him a warning. Some people was like, oh, no, it was a threat. Well, the state used the word provoked. Provoked. So the self-defense, you can't claim self-defense if you started it, the altercation, if you was the aggressor. The state used the word provoke because they want to paint Karmelo Anthony as the aggressor, right? Which we all know that Karmelo Anthony was minding his own business based on Hunter's own testimony, right? Not testimony, but, you know, he went on the news and he said out his own mouth that he turned around and said, what are you doing here? Why are you here? So he started the conversation. Now, I will say that the defense did get the witnesses to agree that Austin put hands on Karmelo Anthony first, right? So I don't think anybody denied that Austin made physical contact first. But the fact that the state was able to get these witnesses to say or agree that Karmelo Anthony provoked Austin, that's just not a good look. That's not a good look for the defense at all, okay? Now, the defense did do better today than they did earlier in the trial, right? Because they did give the jury something to work with. But I still think the state has a cleaner argument, okay? Now, the state argument is that a young fella is no longer with us, okay? Karmelo is the one that caused that, and the force was excessive. That's the state's argument. The defense argument requires the jury to believe that Karmelo reasonably feared seriously bodily harm or danger in that moment, okay? Now, I don't think the defense took fully control of the case, not from the beginning, not at the end. But I do think that they did create enough for the jury to discuss. Was he in fear? Do he think that he was being jumped? Was he surrounded? He was sitting down. The twin boys did outweigh him, okay? I just thought the defense would just hammer in a little bit more. And let me just say this because I wasn't actually in the courtroom. It could be that the news people are not reporting it like the defense hammered in hard, but I haven't heard nobody come out and say that yet, that, oh, the defense brung the noise. They brung it down. They hammered. Yeah, they caught some of the witnesses in lies, right? But out of 21 witnesses, majority of the witnesses were saying that Karmelo Anthony was in the wrong. But I think what's really, really going to hurt the defense is the state was able to get a couple of their own witnesses. They only had 6 witnesses defense, right? They were able to get a couple of the defense witnesses to agree with their argument. That's not good at all. That's not good. That's not good. However, I think the jury will have something to work with from the defense because Karmelo Anthony's background is not, danger, violence, and things of that nature. And even though he did have a weapon on him, he did not just come out there and strike an argument and start the confrontation, right? But was he in reasonable fear of serious bodily harm is what they're going to have to determine, okay? Now, Karmelo Anthony chose not to take the stand, and that is his constitutional rights, right? Now, I was actually thinking that it would have been great if he did. I know people say that, it is known, your constitutional rights, you have a right to remain silent. But let me just ask you guys this. Because of the type of person Karmelo is, clean record, A student, idol son, from what we've been hearing, do you think that he should have taken a stand? I actually think that he should have. And the reason why I say that is because forget witnesses, forget the 6 witnesses that was there for you. You were there. You know how you felt at that moment. You know why you did what you did. You know what was going through your head, right? You know how you felt when you did it. Like, I just feel that no one would have been able to tell the story of what he thought in that moment, because intentional first degree or intentional murder is based off a mindset, right? How would we know what mindset he was in if he don't say it out of his own mouth? Now, some people, I say, nah, don't say nothing. Just be quiet and let the case go on. But I just think Karmelo Anthony would have been great to speak on his own behalf. And I think that if they would have heard the words out of his own mouth of how he felt and how he felt outnumbered and how he felt scared and what he thought was going to happen, I think that would have helped him, okay? However, he did choose not to speak, and I'm pretty sure that came from his attorney. I will say some jurors were asked, if he does not take the stand, would you feel a certain way? And some jurors did, answer, yeah, I would feel a certain way if he don't take the stand, because some people look at that as if you don't take the stand, there's some level of guilt, okay? Some people do feel that way, right? However, putting him on a stand and subjecting him to be cross-examining, it could be risky, right? Because I'm pretty sure the first thing the state would have asked is, what made you bring a weapon to school in the first place? Is this just something that you do, just carry weapons around with you? Did you know that this was a policy that you wasn't supposed to have a weapon? Is this something that you do violate policies all the time? I'm pretty sure they would have tried to trick him up in some type of way. So him not getting on the stand, I'm pretty sure that was from his attorney so that they could avoid certain questions, right? Now, closing arguments start tomorrow. I feel that the defense needs to bring it in their closing arguments. Now, I'm going to, in my notes, I have what I think they're going to say. All right. So let's talk about what the prosecutor is likely going to say in their closing arguments, right? They're going to say that Austin may have confronted him first, but Karmelo Anthony escalated it to deadly force, right? He changed it. Oh, yeah. Let me say this. Let me back up a little bit. Some of the witnesses, which We didn't hear this in the police report at all. At all, right? Of all the witnesses, no one said this in the police report. However, several of them said that Austin said, man, I don't want to fight you. Man, I don't want to fight you. So that hurts Karmelo even more, because now they saying that, like Austin, like he's being the calm person. I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight you. So that discounts that. Like, why would Karmelo Anthony be afraid if Austin is saying, I don't want to fight you? But is that in the police reports? No witness said that Austin said, I don't want to fight you, right? So let me just say that. So again, the prosecutor is going to try to argue that, yes, Austin may have touched Karmelo, right? He may have confronted him first, but Karmelo escalated it to deadly force, right? Now, Mike Howard, the defense, is likely going to say, listen, Karmelo Anthony, he was a 17-year-old kid, teenager. It was chaotic. It was raining. He was surrounded by a lot of people that he did not know. He was sitting down and people were standing over him. He felt outnumbered. He was touched. He was threatened. And he warned Austin, do not put your hands on me. And then he reacted out of fear. That's what the defense is going to come. All right. That leaves the jury to decide whether Austin was the aggressor or whether Karmelo was the aggressor, and whether or not Karmelo felt that it was reasonable for him to use self-defense. Did he reasonably believe that his life was in danger? And it's not just danger for death, but even seriously bodily harm. Like, did he think he was going to get thrown down the bleachers? Did he think that he was going to get jumped and beat by several people on the team, right? So, I will say this. Before the defense even started their case, right? Before they start calling witnesses, right after the state closed arrest, the defense attorney got up and said, Your Honor, I called for this case to be dismissed because the prosecutors did not prove their case. The state did not prove that this was first degree. So I'm asking you guys to just go ahead and end this right now. And the judge says no. The judge denied that. So that's why they had to move on. Now, in some cases, the judge have done that. After listening to the prosecutor or the state give their argument, the defense will get up and say that. And the judge will agree and say, you know what, you're right. Case dismissed. But in this case, the judge says, no, we're moving forward. So the judge listened to those 21 witnesses and he wanted to see and hear what the defense had to say. Okay. So right now, the closing arguments are going to happen and then it's going to be up to the jurors. This is a tough one, you guys. This is a tough one. Y'all know I absolutely do not like anybody that feel that it is necessary to put hands on someone, right? Because, we were all taught to keep our hands to ourselves. I do not believe that Karmelo Anthony provoked him. I do believe that he feel that he was outnumbered. However, it's not what I believe. It's what those jurors, those 12 jurors are going to believe when they get in that deliberation room. Okay? This case didn't go quite like I thought it was going to go. I actually thought that it was going to go, it was going to be some, because they put a gag order out there for people to be quiet and don't give out certain information. So I thought that the defense was holding something, holding gold in the bag. And they was going to come out and be like, hey, this is proof. It was threats. It was this, it was that. And they didn't do that. They didn't bring that. So that makes me worried a little. Let me read a couple of your comments before I move on. It is tough because it doesn't look good for Karmelo. It doesn't look good. Like, it doesn't look good for him walking out of the courtroom, um, after the jury deliberate. No, it doesn't look good, but it doesn't look like he's going to be sent away 25 to life. I just don't feel that at all. He had his own tent to be in. He wasn't wanted there. Why bring a knife unless you plan to use it? Yeah, I don't agree with that because it was quite a few people walking outside of the courtroom with weapons around their waist. So why bring a gun outside of the courtroom unless you plan to use it, right? So I don't think that he planned to use it. I think that it was for protection, just like the guns that people were wearing around their waist is for protection. So I don't agree with that comment at all. Hunter created the entire mess because he should have left this kid alone. To be honest with you, I think I look at it both ways. I think that Karmelo Anthony could have handled it different, just like Hunter and Austin could have handled it different, okay? I think that Austin and Hunter, in my opinion, were being nasty when they told him to leave because him sitting there didn't bother nobody, right? But I believe that Karmelo Anthony, when you have a group of people telling you to get out, like they said it was like 15 or so people saying, leave, leave, leave. I think, we should teach our kids to make it home, right? I understand, stand your ground. You don't have to leave and this, that, and the other, but that puts you in a position to where you may have to defend yourself. I think if anything, he should have left. Personally, I'm not staying somewhere that I'm not wanted, right? I'm just not. I'm not going to stay where I'm not wanted. However, I think that he should have left and went and talked to an adult. But I also think that Hunter and Austin should have talked to an adult instead of trying to take things up in their own hands, right? But if Karmelo Anthony was truly in fear of his life, I think that he should have just left and went and talked to a coach or an adult, because the goal is to make it home. He was invited by his friend and he hung out with him in the tent, and Austin was the only one that had a problem. So that's what we were told, right? That Austin was the only one that had a problem. However, in those 21 witnesses for the state, they got up on that stand and said it was more than just Austin and Hunter that wanted him out of the tent. Said several students were yelling to Karmelo Anthony to leave their tent. So they made it sound like it wasn't just a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-1, but it was quite a few of them that wanted him to leave, all right? He wasn't invited by the friend. I don't know. I can't say he wasn't invited because the defense was able to prove that they were indeed friends. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that Karmelo Anthony would say I was over there, and they showed proof where they shook hands or something. So whether he was invited by the friend or he was there to visit the friend, he knew someone underneath that tent. He didn't just go there just because. They were being a bully and got what they didn't ask for. If he would have minded his business, he would be here. No, just wanted to be a bully, so he asked for his demise. I do believe that I do believe that Austin jumped in, as his brother said, because his brother initiated it and his brother jumped in. I do believe that he was being a bully. I do. I believe that he was telling him to leave because he wanted to flex in front of his friends. I don't think that there should be any other reason why you're telling someone to get from under a tent and they're not harming no one, not doing anything wrong to anyone, okay? So I do believe that Austin was being, a mean person, okay? Why did he even go over there if he didn't go for trouble? Who, Karmelo, why did Karmelo go over there if he didn't go for trouble? I don't think that Karmelo was looking for trouble. If Karmelo was looking for trouble, then Karmelo would have started talking to them first versus Hunter turning around saying, "Who are you? And you need to leave," right? So, I'm the type of person that if a person is looking for trouble, they're going to initiate the communication and all of that. He did not initiate the communication. Hunter turned around and initiated the communication with him. Amoira, I believe the witnesses was coached. Proof is the friend denied him. I do believe that the witnesses were coached. And the reason why I say that is because the defense was able to point out the inconsistencies in what they told the police the day of and the day afterwards versus what they got up on the stand and said. Now, not all of them changed their story, but a few of them did change their story. So I do believe that, and there was if I'm not mistaken, a group text message. Hold on, let me find out about that group text message. Hold on one second. So what I found out about the text message, so hold on, because see what I heard and what I'm reading now is something different. So it says, it wasn't a group text message that went out to the witnesses telling them what to say. It was confirmed that Coach Rob Starr testified that he sent Austin Metcalf a text that day saying Austin needs to step up and help, okay? So the context was that Memorial was hosting the track meet. Coaches were stretched thin, and Coach Starr said that he had some of the leaders helping with the tent area. So Coach Starr reported that he sent Austin that text before the incident, right? So basically, they was trying to prove that Austin wasn't just being mean, telling Karmelo Anthony to leave. He had been texted by the coach to step up and help out, so he felt responsible for managing the tent. Now, it said there was testimony today from Frisco Detective Riley that he reviewed one of the witnesses' phones, including their camera roll, text, and Snapchats, and he called that search thorough. And it sounds like the defense was trying to show the phone was checked and maybe explored whether there was messages relevant to what happened. So what they're trying to prove is that the coach put Austin in the leadership position. I don't know if I believe that. Hold on, let me say. I don't believe that was the case. I think that is more to CYA Austin for. Yeah, so it said that they didn't even show it in court. So if there was a text message of the coach sending to Austin saying, "Hey, I need you to step up and be a leader today," they should have asked to see that in court, and they did not. It was not shown. It was only discussed, but they did not review it. So I'm not buying that, because if that was true, that is something easily can be proven, right? The coach can send the text message, they could have put it up that, she said text messages like that are totally irrelevant. Yeah, they are irrelevant, but what they were trying to do, they was trying to show that Austin didn't just step up and say, he wasn't just being mean by saying, "Get out of our tent, get out of our tent." They're trying to make it sound like he was being a leader because the coach put him in charge. I don't really believe that, because if they can't produce that text message either on Austin's phone or the coach's phone, then that's some made up on the stand shit, okay? She said court TV stated that they showed the text message. I'm seeing here that it says the text message was not shown. Let me see if I read this again. It said the text message came up during the testimony. It said it was discussed but not seen. So Where did Court TV say that they showed it? Because it says it was discussed but not seen. Karmelo Anthony is not guilty physically, but not mentally. Wait a minute, Karmelo Anthony is not guilty physically, but not mentally. What do you mean? Did you mean to say he's guilty physically, but not mentally? Tell me what you're saying. Correct that for me. She said this was self-defense, point blank, period. I do believe that Karmelo Anthony thought that he was protecting himself. Austin did put his hands on him first, though. Everybody testified that Austin did make the first physical contact. It should have been brought up if the text wasn't shown. Yeah, so it said that it wasn't shown. It was just mentioned. The coach testified as such under oath and threats of contempt. Pretty sure he didn't make it up, plus others witness verified. Well, what I'm saying is he testified it, but that's an easy fix. That's easy to show. All you got to do is just print it out, right? It was not shown in court. So I guess they just supposed to just take his word. I'm saying I don't believe it, because if it was, I'm a receipts type person. So if I say that I text someone telling them to be the leader this day and watch the tent, then I should be able to show that. So I'm just keeping it a buck. That's something easily provable. Who cares whether the coach told Austin to protect the tent? That has nothing to do with whether he stabbed someone in the heart without adequate provocation. Being pushed doesn't permit heart stabs. Yeah, I don't think that Karmelo took that weapon out and said, boom, I'm gonna stab you in the heart either. I think that he took it out. He just stabbed and he took off running. I don't think that he deliberately like, oh, I'm gonna KI you. I'm gonna KI you. He didn't surround him. He didn't get surrounded in a tent, LOL. Logically, he outnumbered Austin, challenged him following coach orders. Yeah, I don't know if that was really the coach orders. I think the coach was just trying to save Austin's look of being a bully, of telling him to leave the tent. She said, is it true there was a group chat thread where the students were getting their story straight and more? So that wasn't confirmed. I don't see anywhere where that was confirmed, but that was rumored, but I don't see where that was confirmed. It's cut and dry. These cases could argue for Karmelo was manslaughter. So I do believe that he most likely will get manslaughter or reckless homicide, because there is some proof that that Karmelo could have backed away and just left, because what they're saying is if he took off running after the stabbing, right? Why he just didn't take off running before the stabbing. So I do believe that he's going to be held somewhat responsible, but first degree, nah. It was definitely not first degree. And if anybody's saying it was first degree, you just don't understand what first degree really is, okay? First degree is intentional and knowing murder, okay? But manslaughter or reckless homicide, yeah, I think that Austin made Karmelo made a mistake. She said, Amoira, they just showed you on court TV just now. Oh, thank you, Brown Sugar. Oh, that's what you saying they showed on court TV. I thought you were saying that they showed the text on court TV. Oh, yeah. I did do an interview for court TV. I don't see premeditation in this case. No, it definitely was not. I do not believe that he went over there to start mess, to be a bully, to unalive anyone. I do not believe any of that. She said, I am a lawyer here. It is first degree. You don't have to intend to kill. You just have to intend to do the thing that caused someone to die. Yeah, no, I don't think it's first degree, because you have to, in first degree is a mindset. Okay. So a mindset, if your mindset was to KI someone, then that's first degree. I don't think that Karmelo mindset was to KI this young fella, because as he was walking to the police car in handcuffs, he asked, is he going to be okay? That is not first degree intentional murder. So if you are a lawyer, I don't know, maybe you do real estate or something, because I just do not believe that that is first degree. She said, can you read my question? Where is your question? Can you write it again? Oh, wait a minute. Amoira, do you believe that his attorney will now offer him a plea deal because of the defense witnesses? So the defense doesn't offer plea deals. The state offer plea deals, and the defense accepts it or not. No, I don't even think a plea deal should even be brought up, because I just don't think that the state will be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Austin intentionally and knowingly KI'd, not Austin, I'm sorry, that Karmelo intentionally and knowingly KI'd Austin Metcalf. I just don't think that the state met their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that it was intentional and knowing. You don't walk to the car and say, is he going to be all right, if you knowingly kill someone or you intentionally kill someone. He did not try to kill that young fella. He made a bad call, right? If anything, I think it was probably sudden passion, but I do not believe it was intentional at all. Student witness testimony showed Austin wasn't looking for a fight, and Karmelo was asked to leave 15 times and then was trying to fight Austin. He brought a knife to fight. So that's what I was saying earlier. 15 or so people testified that that Austin said, I'm not trying to fight you, man. I'm not trying to fight you. But I call bullshit on that. And the reason why I call bullshit is because it's not in the police report. Okay. They have several witnesses' statements in the police report, and not one witness said Austin said, man, I don't want to fight you. Now all of a sudden, magically, those words appear. I call bullshit. I call bullshit. That would have been in the police report from at least one witness if that was the case. I call bullshit. Did they show the knife in court? So the knife was a folding knife, and it was 3.5 inches in length. So that doesn't even meet the requirement for the restricted. Texas has a, let me explain the knife. Hold on one second. And I'm going to read it just as it is, because Texas is a little bit different than a lot of states when it comes to the knife. So in Texas, the key knife rule is usually 5.5 inches blade rule. They have a blade rule, okay? So a knife with a blade over 5.5 inches is called a location restricted knife, right? That doesn't mean that it's illegal everywhere, but it does mean that you cannot legally carry it in certain restricted places, right? So for a school-related setting, Texas school safety guidelines have guidance says that it is offense to intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly possess or enter the premises of a school, educational institution, high school, sporting events, any type of sporting events with a location restricted knife. Okay, so his knife was not a location restricted knife. His knife was only 3.5 inches, which is 2 inches below the location restricted knife standard. So it was okay for him to have that knife on him because the blade was only 3.5, not 5.5. Okay, so that's why they haven't made that such a big deal, because Texas, not any other state. We're not talking Illinois. We're not talking Georgia, any other state, right? We're talking Texas. They have a location restricted knife. If his blade was over 5.5 inches, then he would have knife, or should I say restricted knife charges, okay? He did not have those charges because the knife was not over the restricted amount. Okay. He said, doesn't matter how long the knife was. All that matters is, did he mean to stab him, and did the person die? Yeah, I don't believe that he intentionally stabbed him to cause death. Okay. She said, how can you say you don't want to fight after you just push someone? Yes. And see, and if I was the defense attorney, that's exactly what I would say. How you going to put hands on someone if you say you don't want to fight? That's why I call bullshit on that. I don't want to fight. You don't put hands on someone if you don't want to fight. Okay. That is straight up and down bullshit. You do not push, put hands, lay hands, shove, punch anybody if you do not want to fight. You do not want to fight. You do not escalate it to physical contact. So I call bullshit on that. I don't want to fight. And not only that, he had his brother there and a lot of other people, a lot of other friends there, and they were all standing over Karmelo Anthony. So I do not believe that him saying, I don't want to fight. I don't believe that for one moment, not 1 second. I do not believe that shit at all. You do not put hands on someone if you do not want to fight. That's bullshit, and it was pulled out of somebody's ass and stated on the stand, period. They will spit on you and claim it's raining. That's white people in a nutshell. White people want to be able to harass you and dictate your response. That is why I have issues with the law and would acquit Karmelo Anthony every day. White people don't want a free and equal country. I don't think it's just white people because, you know, there's another case of well, I ain't even gonna say it. Most of y'all already know, out of Chicago, and that was black on black, and that's bullshit as well. I just think people need to keep their fucking hands to themselves or whatever, because you can't tell someone how to respond when you put your hands on someone. People black out, you know, people don't want to be touched. Leave people alone. Like, keep your hands to yourself. Stop thinking that you're biggity badass because you're gonna put your hands on somebody and they gonna break all your fingers off. Okay? Like, just keep your hands to yourself. You're taught at a very young age, you know, your parents say, no, don't hit. No, don't do that. Keep your hands to yourself. Putting your hands on somebody, anything should go. I'm just going to be honest. You know, people say, oh, it shouldn't have escalated to a stabbing or escalated to a shooting. Keep your fucking hands to yourself. Like, keep your hands to yourself. You can say whatever you want to say out of your mouth. I believe in the First Amendment. Cuss a motherfucker out. Drag them. Say whatever words you want to say. But when you escalate and start putting your hands on someone, to me, that changes the whole story. Like, keep your hands to yourself. Don't sit here and say, this man didn't want to fight and he physically tried to remove him from the tent. If he didn't want to fight, he could have, that same coach that texted him and told him to be in charge, he could have got his phone out and texted him and said, we got an intruder that will not leave. Simple. Keep your hands to yourself. As a veteran, we are not allowed to just shoot somebody, right? We have to give them a warning, even if they shoot at us first. We still have to give them a warning. We literally have to give them a warning. We can't just put our hands on people. So I just think people need to teach their children. That's what we need to start in the home. Teach your kids. Make your home safe. I hate this for this young fella because I do believe this young fella is going to prison. I do believe he's going to prison. I do believe that he's going to catch some type of time. I don't think it's going to be 25 to life, right? But I do believe that he's going to serve at least, at first I was saying 3 to 4 years until the defense rests, and I'm like, that's all y'all got? So now I'm thinking more 6 to 8 years. But I don't think that it's going to be no hard time. But hell, 8 days to me is too much, right? He was a good kid. I believe that he was a good kid. I believe that he come from a good home. But where I fault him at is if you are surrounded by people and if you have a way out, Take that way out and deal with whatever later. Take that way out. Don't worry about people calling you cowards and this, that, and the other. Your freedom means more to you than anything. That's why when that young lady came to my house and I said she almost lost her life, because if I would have opened that door, I would have lost my freedom, because I know I would have KI'd her 100%. I would have lost my freedom because she would be on someone's t-shirt right now. And I'm just keeping it a buck. So, they want to say, oh, you're scared you didn't open the door. I still have my freedom. I'm still living my good life. And she's still miserable watching me live my good life. Sometimes we have to think about our freedom. I promise you, I would have lost my freedom that day. So with that said, but I'm an older person, right? And I have a husband that stopped me. I thank God that he did, because I swear to God, she would have lost her life. So with that being said, I think that this 17-year-old young fella thought he was doing the right thing. I hate that he reached in his bag and chose to use a weapon. But I do believe that he felt that if he fought them, that he would come out on the shorter end. I wish that he would have just backed away and just went down the bleachers, because I'm this type of person. If you don't want me there, I don't want to be there. If you tell me to leave and there's a bunch of people yelling, leave, 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 then I'm going to leave. Now, I did hear the judge say, oh, he was exercising his rights and he was standing his ground and he didn't have to move. I understand you didn't have to move, right? But why want to be there when they don't want you there? That's just what type of person I am. You don't want me here, then I don't want to be here. I don't want to be somewhere where I am not wanted. So I would have left, right? However, what could have been going through his mind? He probably felt like he would have been like, oh, they just punked me. He would have been laughed at. Or maybe he felt that if he would have turned his back, they would have even jumped him. I don't know what was going through Karmelo Anthony's mind that day. That's why I kind of wish that he would have taken the stand. However, I do believe that he felt somewhat intimidated by them gathering around him. That's easier to say speaking as a mature adult. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. At least that's what they said, but I think they were lying. They did with the rest of the stuff. What do you elaborate a little bit more, Latricia? I don't understand what you're saying. So he had a public defender and not a paid attorney. No, that's not true. Mike Howard is definitely not no public defender. He is a very good attorney. I just feel that, he could have done a little more, in my opinion. Praying for a good outcome for him and his family. Yeah, I am too. Did they jump him? No. And see, that's the thing that I thought that was going to come out. I thought that it was going to, when they put a gag on this case, I thought that, Karmelo Anthony's and his team was holding some information, like he was jumped or he was pushed on or punched, because, one of the family friends said that he was punched in the eye, but none of that stuff came out. And I was just so disappointed, because I literally thought they was holding something that, that would have justified the reason for him doing what he did, but none of that came out. So, I don't even know what the gag order was for at this point. When you said they told him to leave, I don't think they were all telling him to leave. Well, I think they said that to try, but to be honest with you, I think if I was an attorney, I would have painted that as he was being ganged up on. If you got 15 people yelling at you to leave, 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 now it's not just you against just Austin, it's you against all these 15 people. That's how I would have created the argument, right? However, they used it to say it wasn't just Austin telling him to leave. Like nobody in the tent wanted him there. That's how they painted the picture. Like he was unwelcome, unwanted, right? Can you read my comment? Amoira, did he get stabbed in the chest or abdomen? It was the chest. He got stabbed in the chest. They would have jumped him. They're bullies. Are some of these lawyers so bad that they are giving the jury something, yes or no, on a murder trial? That's so crazy. I don't understand your question. Then he's acting like he wants to lose because it's so much more that he could have discussed from the defense side. So I wasn't in there to know exactly what was said by the defense. However, just listening to the news and some of the people that actually were in there, they did not speak as if the defense went hard in the paint, right? The defense pushed back a little, but in my opinion, I feel like the defense should have came with it, like brung the noise, brung the heat, you know? I wish the defense should have put him on the stand. He needed that jury to feel and see how he felt. He really needed to testify. In my opinion, I agree with you. And the reason being is because I just don't think that he would have had anything to lie about. You know, some people don't want to get up on the stand because they're liars and they know they're going to be caught in their lie. But I think that Karmelo Anthony did not have anything to lie about. They could have literally, I mean, he could have just answered the questions and just been honest on how he felt that day, you know, how he felt, like what was going through your mind, what was, you know. But I think that they would have concentrate more on the knife than anything. Like, why in the world would you bring a knife to school in a school event in the first place? Like, did you bring a knife because you was looking for something, looking to do something, cause some type of harm? So I think that they was afraid that they were going to focus too much on the knife, bringing a knife to a school event versus him, you know, wanting to save his life or save himself from great bodily harm. Did he get stabbed or did he fall on the knife? Okay, now you're reaching. He went to another team tent, and that's why they all asked him to leave. He went there to instigate. Nah, that's not true. I don't think so. If you go to someone's tent to instigate, then you're going to instigate. Like, let's keep it a buck. He would have said something to them. He was only in the tent for 4 minutes before this kicked off. Well, actually 2 minutes. So the tape revealed that he entered from the back, sat down, and 2 minutes later, Hunter turned around and said something to him. So if he was in the tent to initiate it, he would have walked in talking shit. But he walked in dapping up his friend, you know? If found guilty, so he have to go amongst those big prisoners. That's what I hate, the only kid. Yeah, they are trying him as an adult. They are trying him as an adult. The state would not have a better defense if they didn't. The state would not, hold on, let me read this. The state would not have had a better defense if they didn't get everybody to lie. So when you put things out there like the state had a better defense, anybody have a defensive, they can get witness. Okay, I don't understand what you're saying at all. I just looked, it was the right vertical. That's where the medical examiner. I don't think they put him on the stand because he has epilepsy, and being under pressure, stress can cause him to have seizures. Oh, that might be a reason. I wonder if Austin parents wish he would have made a different decision as he would have still been here. I'm sure if he would have made a different decision, he would still be here. That's just my opinion. I never knew tents was so scared. Why in the heck would you start pushing someone for stepping under a tent? In my opinion, I don't care how they want to paint Austin or his brother. For them to tell someone to leave that wasn't there, causing no problem, he wasn't taking up a seat. I could see if it was a teammate, didn't have nowhere to sit, and it's like, man, you don't go to our school, and there's no other places to sit, and this teammate needs to sit down, and because you're not a part of our team, can you move over? Like, there's a whole lot of bleachers space out there, right? However, if he wasn't there causing no problem, I don't see why it was such a big deal of him being there, right? And then it was even noted that other people that wasn't belong to the school was there as well. So I don't think him being up under the tent, in my opinion, was him instigating or starting any problems. Again, he was there visiting someone that he knows. He knew someone there, right? So I don't think that that's just a big deal. I don't think that he was trying to instigate anything. A person is trying to instigate something, they pop off and they say stuff, right? I believe Karmelo Anthony would have went in there and said something to them. And out of Hunter's own testimony, Karmelo Anthony was sitting there as they were walking back to the tent. So when he went there in the first place, there wasn't a lot of people even sitting in the tent. So if he was there to cause problems, then you would think that he would have walked in while they were already there. They were not there. They walked up to the tent. They were coming from somewhere else, right? So, you can't say that he was there to instigate, because he saw a tent there and it was half empty. And he sat down. And they came back and took their space, their proper spots or whatever, right? So that could be definitely debunked. So you think just because Karmelo Anthony wasn't instigating anything or doing anything wrong, he allowed to stab and murder someone? I know you must just came in, rewind it, and you'll hear what I said about that. Who are these disrespectful people? Oh, some of these people are here because of the case. You have to understand this is a big trial that's going on, and some people feel very emotional about this case, and some people are leaning heavily on the defense of Karmelo Anthony, and some people are leaning heavily on the defense of Austin Metcalf. And let me just say this. I think, as far as this racially divided thing, I think when people that have white skin, they look at it and they look at Austin like as if he could be their son, their brother, their nephew, their friend, right? As black people look at Karmelo Anthony as, oh, it could be my son, my brother, my nephew, my friend, or whatever, right? So some people take to cases like that. It may not be 100%, oh, it's because people are racist. It's because they can identify more with that person because of the color of their skin. And I do believe that there's a lot of people that's identifying with Austin because he's a white kid, and a lot of people are identifying with Karmelo because he's a black kid. But I look at what happened. I try to look at the facts, and y'all know I say I don't feel as good about this case as I do the Holly and Romika case, right? And as more things came out, I start saying, even though I do not agree at all about anybody putting their hands on someone, I just think that Karmelo Anthony made a bad mistake. He made a mistake. He made a bad mistake. And it just doesn't look good. Now, I said that if the defense was able to prove that it was 2 against 1, because now you got 425 pounds against a 160-pound fella, if the defense was able to prove that it was 2 against 1, then I felt like the defense would have had a better chance to win, right? Or if they could prove that Austin punched him, because that came out that from the family friend that he was punched, then I think that Karmelo would have had a better chance. But none of that came out because, again, they had a gag order out there. So we didn't know all the details. We didn't know what was on the tape, right? So because the defense did not prove that it was 2-against-1, I mean, they did prove that it was more people talking to Karmelo based on their own testimonies. 15 people telling him, you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave. And that was 15-against-1 if you ask me. However, I think what really, really, really hurt the defense is that they called 6 witnesses out of the state's 21 witnesses. And of the defense 6 witnesses, some of the witnesses, the state were able to get to agree that Karmelo was that he provoked it. That he provoked it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy, right? She said, well, both sides. Hold on, let me read this. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Well, both sides. Is that hit or lack will be okay if the judge grant him probation for the rest of his life? I don't think he should be on probation for the rest of his life. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's absolutely ridiculous to be on probation for the rest of your life. I don't think that I would even accept that as a 18-year-old kid, be on probation for the rest of their life. I think that he's going to be found guilty of a lesser charge, if any charge. I just do not think that first degree is going to stick. If anybody think that first degree is going to stick, you got to explain to me how, and I'll drop the link and you guys can come up here and you can explain to me how in the world you think first degree is going to stick. I do not see first degree at all, but I do see reckless homicide or even what's that other one? Sudden passion. Let me look up sudden passion again. Sudden passion. Hold on. So sudden passion in the state of Texas is not the same as self-defense, but it is usually something the defense can raise during the punishment phase. However, he would have to be, sudden passion, he would have to be found guilty first. So if he's found guilty, the defense can raise sudden passion, okay? And if the defendant proves they caused the death under the immediate influence of sudden passion arising from an adequate cause, the offense can be punished as a second-degree felony instead of a first degree. So Texas law, adequate cause, as something, they defined it as something that would calmly produce anger, rage, or resentment or terror in an ordinary person enough to make the mind incapable of cool reflection. Texas law defines sudden passion directly caused by provocation from the person killed or someone acting with them, arising at that time of the offense, and not only from old past provocation. Well, you know what? To be honest with you, I don't even think that this would even happen. And the reason why I say that is because the state already tried to put it off that Karmelo Anthony is the one that provoked it. So if the jurors believe the state's argument that Karmelo Anthony provoked this, I don't even think they can use sudden passion. It says the problem here would be that the jury would have to believe Austin's conduct was serious enough to produce terror, rage, or loss of cool reflection in an ordinary person. A shove, push, or confrontation, it might help that argument, but the state will likely say it was not enough to justify or explain a deadly stab to the chest. So, it said self-defense is a not guilty argument. Manslaughter may be the recklessness, not intentional murder argument. And sudden passion is if you convict him of murder, You reduce the punishment range argument. So I actually think the recklessness, not intentional murder, manslaughter is the better fit for something like this. If he gets found guilty of anything, I think the manslaughter would be the better outcome. I do not think that the sudden passion is going to work. I honestly do not think that he's going to be found guilty of murder. I think that he will be found guilty of manslaughter. I know the answer to this, but I'm asking anyway because I just want to be sure. Oh, okay, good. So manslaughter is not considered murder. Okay. In Texas, murder and manslaughter are both types of criminal homicide, but they are separate offenses. Texas law says criminal homicide includes murder, capital murder, manslaughter, and criminal negligent homicide. The main difference is the person's mental state. Murder usually means the person intentionally or knowingly caused the death or intended seriously bodily injury or committed an act clearly dangerous to human life. Manslaughter means the person recklessly caused someone's death. In other words, the death happened because of reckless conduct. But the state may not have to prove the person intentionally or knowingly meant to kill that person, right? So again, I believe that it's going to be manslaughter because I do not believe that this was an intentional or knowing murder, okay? I do not think it was intentional, nor do I believe that it was knowing. And I know you probably like, oh, are you trying to say he took out a knife and he didn't know that it could case somebody? If he knew that it can case somebody, he wouldn't have been saying, is he going to be all right? We're talking about a 17-year-old kid. We're not talking about somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. We're talking about a 17-year-old kid. He said, is he going to be all right? I do not believe Karmelo Anthony knew that he was going to KI Austin Metcalf. I do not believe that he intended to do it, and I do not believe he knew that him stabbing him was going to do that. It was going to kill him. She said, again, he can't now claim manslaughter as claiming self-defense. He already admitted to using deadly force intentionally, meaning he admitted to cause lethal force. You can't stab someone unintentionally. You can stab someone and do not intend to murder them. Stabbing someone, everybody that has ever been stabbed don't die. So you can absolutely stab someone and don't think that they're going to die. So your whole comment is incorrect. That is so ignorant. You're going in timeout. Don't be ignorant, please. Well, it's up to the jury to determine deadly force was necessary. Yes, it is up to the jurors. His knife was already open when he sat down. That's going to push premeditated. My question is, how do you know his knife was open when he sat down? When they said his hands was in the bag. You can unfold a knife while your hand is in the book bag. So I do not agree that, or I do not think that anyone can prove that the knife was open when he sat down. And that does not push premeditated. She said all of them had x-ray vision. Exactly. And I do believe that's why the gag order was put in place, because there was a lot of people, and this is on both sides. This is on Karmelo Anthony and Austin, the Metcalf side. They was just putting out lies on top of lies on top of lies on top of lies, just making shit up or whatever that wasn't even true. So I think that's why gag orders were put out there. And then the judge told the jurors, do not believe anything that you heard in the public or the news, because a lot of this shit was just untrue. When you put your hands on someone, you don't know what may happen. That's why you don't fuck with people unless you got death on you. And that's what that boy had on him. He just didn't know it. Yeah, I agree. You do not put your hands on people. That's what we need to teach our children. Okay? She said, excuse my French. Amoira, I apologize. It's okay. But that's what we should teach our children, our kids. Don't put your hands on people because you're going to end up on somebody's shirt. Like that. Let's start there. Let's start there. And if a coach put him in charge of the tent, the coach should have, which I don't believe that that's true, the coach should have briefed him and said, don't put your hands on nobody. If it escalate to physical or even look like it's going to be physical, come get me. Okay? Because if the coach did tell him that he's in charge and that, you know, to make sure no one comes in the tent and this, that, and the other, and didn't brief him on don't do anything physically, don't put your hands on nobody, and this, that, and the other, then the coach failed him. Then the coach failed him. I think they will give him shock probation with manslaughter. Shock probation is when they actually go to prison, dress out, and come right back home to finish his sentence on probation. I know somebody that they did that too. Let me look up on that. I don't know if that's even... I don't know if that's even a thing in a murder trial. Let me just see. All right, it says, so shock probation in Texas is when a person is sentenced to prison, actually goes to prison for a short time, and then the judge bring them back and place them on community supervised probation. The idea is that the short prison stay shocks the person into rehabilitation. Texas law gives the sentencing court continuing jurisdiction for 180 days after prison sentence begin in non-state jail felony cases. But in the Karmelo Anthony case, shock probation would likely be a very difficult issue if he were convicted of murder, because Texas murder is generally treated as a serious violent offense with a major limit on judge-ordered probation or community supervision. So Texas Article 42 Alpha 054 limits a judge's ability to place someone on community supervision for certain serious offenses, including murder-related violent offenses. So if he is found guilty of murder, the shock probation is out the door. However, when it becomes more relevant is when a lesser conviction and the sentence legal eligibility allow community supervision. So if he is found for a lesser charge like manslaughter, reckless homicide, then the shock probation may be an option, but not if he's found guilty of murder. I just do not believe he'll be found guilty of murder, though. I had a friend that got 3 years on manslaughter. She was drunk driving and hit a person on a bike. Oh, okay. Hunter started it and Austin came up aggressive because he didn't like how Karmelo was talking to his twin. I agree with that. I agree that because Karmelo did not bow down to them and just do what they wanted him to do, I believe that Austin became verbally aggressive. I believe that Austin and Hunter became verbally aggressive. I actually do believe that. And something else that I find very odd. I find it odd that it was so many witnesses, 21 witnesses that the state called, and not one of them had any video footage of the incident. I call bullshit on that too. I believe that somebody has video footage and they are just not turning it in. That's just my opinion. That's not facts. It's just my opinion. Because y'all know, this is cell phone world. People whip out their phones so fast over anything. They can see somebody drowning, getting eaten by an alligator, and they're going to whip out their phone and record it. I just do not believe that out of 21 people, 27, because it was 21 witnesses for the state and 6 for the defense. Out of 27 witnesses, nobody caught nothing on camera. Come on. Come on. Why would you bring a knife to attract me? I can't answer that. But the knife was not a restricted knife. I will say that. It was not a restricted knife. In the state of Texas, it might be different than the state that you live in. In the state of Texas, the only knife that is restricted is 5.5 blade, the length of the blade, or larger, okay? So it was not a restricted knife, which means that it was not illegal. It was not illegal to have the knife that he had. I agree there may be more detailed videos that was suppressed for the opposition reason, you think. Yeah, I just do not agree that 27 people didn't record shit. Like, that don't sit well with me. Even the defense witness said he did. The friend was, Joe said he wasn't a friend. The friend was Eddie, and he said he wasn't a friend, but the defense was able to prove that they hung out, they have spent time at each other's house, and things of that nature. So the friend may not be a friend today, but they were cordial to each other before. They've hung out before. So if he wants to, disown him now, he can, but they were something before. They can appeal because Hunter did interview and started the Karmelo Anthony stealing rumor. If they appeal, I think that they should bring up the theft of property, because the theft of property, in my opinion, is important, because even Hunter said out his own mouth, that his brother snatched Karmelo Anthony's book bag. That's a theft of property. And I'm just shocked that that was not stated in here. Now, I don't know if it's something that the judge said, oh, you can't bring that up. I don't know, because they did have pretrial before this, and during the pretrial, a lot of things get omitted. They say inadmissible, okay? Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. This is when Hunter said out his own mouth that his brother took the book bag, right? Here we go.
Sitting under our tent at track, there was this kid, before I knew his name now, this kid was sitting under our tent at track. We asked him to move. He started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stopped it and said, you need to move. And he's like, make me move. Austin grabbed his backpack.
Austin grabbed his backpack. That's theft. Theft of property.
And my brother stopped it and said, you need to move. And he's like, make me move. Austin grabbed his backpack.
Theft of property.
You need to move. And he's like, make me move. Austin grabbed his backpack. The kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. But then I look at my brother, and then I'm not going to talk.
And then some of the witness said that he wasn't even right there, that he was down several steps down the bleachers, right? So even out of his own testimony, he was right beside his brother.
Aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stopped it and said, you need to move. And he's like, make me move. Austin grabbed his backpack. The kid.
And I've already said, when he said his brother stepped in, meaning he stepped in, he didn't take over, he stepped in, which means that both of them were at it with Karmelo Anthony.
He started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stopped it and said,
my brother stepped in. Okay, my brother stepped in, which meaning that he was already into it with Karmelo Anthony, and the brother stepped in to assist him. Okay, so that's two against one.
Started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stopped it and said, you need to move. And he's like, make me move. Austin grabbed his backpack. The kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. But then I look at my brother, and then I'm not going to talk about the rest. So just that's what I saw. And I mean, I try to help him, but we come back, we sit down, and this kid said something behind me. I've never met this kid in my entire life. I've never knew who he was. Said something just inappropriate and uncalled for. And I turned around and asked him who he was. He started getting really aggressive. My brother stepped in. He started being, how we all.
Again, my brother stepped in, and then he goes on to say how we always are, right? My brother always come to my defense. Why would your brother have to come to your defense? What were you trying to do?
Always just with me, just brothers, just having my back. And
my brother always have my back. Always have my back. Two on one.
Things started getting more higher intensity, and the kid said some
out of his own words, things start getting high intensity. It was a chaotic incident. It was a chaotic confrontation. Things started getting high intensity.
Things started getting more higher intensity, and the kid said some aggressive stuff, reckless stuff. Also try to handle the problem.
He said the kid said some aggressive stuff. Aggressive is make me move. I'm not going nowhere. Make me move. Put your hands on me again and see what happens. That's aggressive if you ask Hunter. Okay, so anyway, as we just heard, Hunter admitted out of his own mouth that his brother stole Karmelo Anthony's property. My brother grabbed his backpack. My brother grabbed his backpack. So I don't understand why that is not a thing, like why the theft of property was not something that was brought up in court, Not that aggressive according to the law. No, that's aggressive according to the law. What's aggressive according to the law? Him saying, put your hands on me and see what happened. I don't like the way he's using the word aggressive. They love to use those words to describe us. Yes, they do. They say we are aggressive all the time, Attitudes, aggressive and attitudes. I hope they give that retarded idiot 99 years. Ooh, Daniel. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm not trying to offend nobody, but you saying you hope they give Karmelo Anthony 99 years. Even if they gave him 99 years, that still would not bring Austin Metcalf back. So I don't think 99 years would justify, what happened. This interview is the reason they didn't let the brother get on the stand. They know what they were doing. They started it with Karmelo. I do believe they started it with Karmelo. I absolutely do believe that they started it with Karmelo. So let me answer a few more of your questions. She said, but bring up a theft of property likely change the outcome of the case. I do believe because you can protect your property. You can absolutely protect your property. That is actually something that I learned. You can't go killing people, but at the same time, if someone is in pursuit of robbing you or trying to, take something from you, you can protect your property. And, so I think that was something that should have came up. Oh yeah, you out of here. You're very ignorant too. They are waiting for his body in prison because he faked being a gang member. All right, you're out of here. In Texas, probation can be given for manslaughter. It's based on first-time offenders and if the judge or jury feels that it was a tragic mistake or malice. Yeah, I honestly do not believe that this was intentional or deliberate, or I do not believe that his mindset was, I'm going to take a life today. I do not believe that. I do not believe that at all. Why didn't the defense side call him to the stand? They could have. They could have. A lot of information that we didn't know, like pretrial, like during pretrial, a lot of things are brought up, right? And, you know, they say, oh, this is admissible, that's not admissible, and things of that nature. So, but the defense could have called Hunter up to testify because his own words would have showed that his brother stepped in to help him out. So it was 2 against 1. She said the defense settled already. It is over. Well, I mean, they have their closing arguments. If they can convince the jurors in the closing arguments that the state has not proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Karmelo Anthony intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Austin Metcalf, if the closing arguments, if he can't do that in the closing arguments, then it is over. But, you know, like Camille just said, even if it's a manslaughter, actually, I think manslaughter is 2 to 20. Let me see. I think it's 2 to 20, but let me verify. All right, let me see. I want to say, no, it was it 2 to 20? Let me see. Yeah, 2 to 20. So in Texas, the lowest sentence depends on which lesser offense the jury is considering. Manslaughter in Texas equal reckless causing someone's death. It says manslaughter is usually a second-degree felony. The punishment range for a second degree in the state of Texas is 2 to 20 years, fine up to $10,000. So if Karmelo was convicted of manslaughter, the minimum prison sentence would generally be 2 years. Okay, so Texas does not have reckless homicide. They actually only have manslaughter and murder, and capital murder. So 2 to 20 years. He could actually be charged criminally negligent homicide. In the state of Texas, they have a criminally negligent homicide. This means the person caused a death by criminally negligent, not recklessness. Let me find out what that means. Criminally negligent. All right, so it means someone caused a death because they failed to recognize a serious, obvious risk that a reasonable person should have recognized. In Texas, the law says a person committed criminal negligent homicide if they caused the death of another person by criminally negligence. It is a state jail felony. The key phrase is criminal negligence. Under the Texas law, that means the person should have been aware of a substantial and unjustifiable risk, but failed to perceive it. The risk has to be so serious that not noticing it is a gross deviation from what an ordinary person would do. You didn't mean to kill anyone. You may not have even realized death could happen, but the risk was so obvious and serious that the law says you should have known better. So the difference from criminally negligent homicide and manslaughter is manslaughter, the person knew there was a serious risk and they ignored it. Criminally negligent homicide, the person should have known there was a serious risk, but they failed to recognize it. So criminal negligence homicide is lower than manslaughter. It means the person did not intentionally kill and may have consciously ignored the risk, but their actions was so careless that a reasonable person should have known someone could die. So criminally negligence is minimum six months to 2 years. So I actually think that that's what he's going to be charged. That's what he's going to be found guilty of. If anything, criminally negligence. Hold on. So manslaughter is 2 to 20. I actually think criminally negligent homicide, if any, that's what he would get. Oh, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Well, so it says that it's probably least likely that he will receive this option, even though the defense can ask for it, but it's more likely that he will be found guilty for manslaughter and not criminally negligent homicide, because they reported facts involving a knife being used during a confrontation, and Karmelo Anthony reportedly acknowledged stabbing afterwards, right? So when he says, I'm not alleged, I did it, while also stating that it was self-defense, that makes criminally negligence harder to prove, because stabbing someone in the chest with a knife looks more like the person understood there was a serious risk or death or serious injury. Criminal negligence usually fits better when someone does something extremely careless but does not consciously appreciate the risk. So manslaughter is the clearer, lesser argument, because manslaughter means I recognize the risk but act recklessly anyway. That fits the defense possible backup arguments better. Not intentional murder, but a reckless heat of the moment act during a confrontation. A Texas defense lawyer quoted by the New York Post also suggests the defense may be aiming for a lesser manslaughter charge rather than a full acquittal. So, could criminal negligence homicide be requested? Yeah, maybe, but manslaughter is the stronger, lesser included argument, because once a knife is used in the chest area, it is hard to argue that he did not recognize the risk. Criminally negligent homicide is more like you should have known. Manslaughter is you knew there was a risk and you acted recklessly anyway. So in my opinion, manslaughter is much more realistic than criminal negligent homicide in this case. But what reckless did Karmelo Anthony commit? He was legally allowed to be there. Under no circumstances can Austin commit battery. That was the reckless act. So you are allowed to defend yourself in the state of Texas. Self-defense is a defense, right? It is a thing. However, when it comes to use of force, because some people testified that it was just a soft push to the shoulder. Some people testified that it was two hands and it knocked him back a little bit. Well, not knocked him back, but like it moved him a little bit. Nevertheless, they're going to argue that a knife was not justified, right? Not saying that the jury is going to buy it, but most likely because they had a whole lot of witnesses that say that Karmelo Anthony provoked Austin, then I believe the jury is going to come back with something less than first degree, but not straight up acquittal. I mean, if they come back with straight up acquittal, I would go out in my front yard and do 5 flips. I mean, I would be so shocked that I wouldn't even care about my knees hurting, my ankles hurting, or anything. And I will flip 5 times, right? On camera, I will flip 5 times on camera, but I do not think that the jurors are going to come back with acquittal on this case right here. Can this be a hung trial? Oh, yeah. I mean, like a mistrial? Yes. Yes. Hung jurors? Hold on. Most of the time, the judge would tell them to go back and keep trying to deliberate to get a verdict. But yes, it could become a hung jury trial if the jurors cannot unanimously agree on a verdict. In Texas criminal cases, the jury usually have to be unanimous. That means all jurors have to agree on guilty or not guilty, or a specific lesser offense if one is submitted to them. What a hung jury means. A hung jury means that the jurors go back and deliberate, but they cannot all agree on the same verdict. That does not mean that Karmelo Anthony is guilty. It does not mean that he is not guilty. It means that the jurors just could not reach a unanimous decision. They couldn't all agree. What happens if this happens? Then the judge may first tell them to keep on deliberating. I don't give a damn how long it take y'all. Just stay back there and work this shit out, right? Especially if they have not been back there very long. Sometimes the judge gives an instruction basically saying, keep trying to reach the verdict if you can do it so without violating anyone's conscience. But if they still cannot agree, the judge can declare this trial a mistrial. Then the prosecutors have a choice. They can retry the case with a new jury, offer a plea deal for a lesser charge, or dismiss the case, though in a serious homicide like this, dismissal is usually unlikely, okay? Unless the state has a major problem. So could it happen? Yes, it could happen, right? But we don't know. So I'm going to answer a few more questions, and then we're going to end this live stream. And tomorrow, the closing statements, the closing arguments begin, okay? Amoira, look up the case between Kason Allison, white student, versus Joseph. Oh, I remember that one, Hispanic student. Kind of familiar to the same. Yeah, I do remember that, and it was in the state of Texas. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't he get manslaughter? I think he got found guilty of manslaughter. Hold on one second. And that's because they was beating him up, and he went into the bathroom and he stabbed the crap out of one of them. Hold on. I think they both happened in Texas, and if I'm not mistaken, it was involving a fight. So in the Kason Allison case, it is similar in some ways, but there are some big differences. Let's talk about what happened in this case. So Kason Allison was charged with murder after he fatally stabbed Joe Ramirez during a fight in the bathroom in Belton High School in the year of 2022. The defense argued Allison acted in self-defense after being attacked by Ramirez and others. The jurors did not convict him on murder or manslaughter. Instead, they convicted him of a lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide. He was later sentenced to 10 years in prison, which became possible because the judge accepted a deadly weapon finding stipulation that increased the punishment exposure beyond the usual state jail felony range. How is this similar to Karmelo Anthony's case? The similarities are why people are comparing them is both cases involved a high school student, a young person accused of stabbing another student. Both happen in a school-related settings. Kason happened inside a Belton High School bathroom. Karmelo Anthony happened at a school track meet. Both involved a confrontation and a fight where self-defense became the defense theme. Both defendants were charged with murder, but had possible lesser options, such as manslaughter or criminal negligent homicide. In Kason's case, the jury rejected murder and manslaughter and chose criminally negligent homicide. But the big difference is that the Kason Allison case had a clearer physical fight brawl setting. Reporting says the stabbing happened during a bathroom fight, and video reportedly showed Ramirez initiating the fight before Allison used the knife, okay? So in the Karmelo Anthony case, the issue is more centered around whether Austin physically contact or allegedly push was enough to justify deadly force. This is a harder self-defense question because the state can argue a push or contact does not equal a deadly threat. Another difference is that the Kason reportedly confessed admitted to the stabbing and argued self-defense directly. Karmelo did not testify, and public reporting says his defense rests without him taking the stand. That may matter because self-defense often works best when the jury hears why the defendant feared for their life, though defendants have the absolute right to not testify. Also, in Casey and Allison case, the jury had the option of lesser charge and landed on the lowest one submitted, criminally negligent homicide. We do not know yet what exact lesser offense the judge will submit to the juror in the Karmelo Anthony case. Now, so the Casey and Allison case is similar because it both involved Texas school stabbings where the defendant was charged both with murder and they both claimed self-defense. But the difference is that Casey's case involved a bathroom fight where the juror apparently did not believe murder or manslaughter fit. Karmelo Anthony may be harder because the jury has to decide whether the alleged physical contact at the tent made deadly force reasonable, reckless, or criminal negligent. So that's the difference. Now, why did he get 10 years again? Why the hell? Why did he get 10 years? Hold on, let me find out why he got 10 years, because that's a long ass time, and he got to serve all 10 years. He got 10 years because the judge applied a deadly weapon finding enhancement after the jury convicted him on a criminally negligent homicide. Normally, criminally negligent homicide in the state of Texas is state jail felony, which is 6 months to 2 years. But in Casey's case, prosecutors argued that because he used a knife, a deadly weapon, the punishment range should be enhanced. The judge agreed, which moved the sentence range up to 2 to 10 years instead of a lower state jail range. So why did he, why was the... Okay, so it says, oh, because he brought a deadly weapon to school. Is that it? Hold on. He stabbed someone with a knife. A knife was used as a deadly weapon. The indictment and evidence involved cutting, stabbing, so the court should apply the deadly weapon finding. Okay, so the defense, the jury did not convict him of murder or manslaughter, and the jury did not specifically find a deadly weapon on the criminally negligent homicide verdict, so the judge should not enhance the sentence. So they could find Karmelo Anthony with the same, you know, they can find him guilty of criminally negligent homicide and still apply the deadly weapon use on him as well. Oh, yeah. He could actually get 10 years. And in Texas, oh, wow. So if this goes down exactly the way the Casey case went down, oh, okay, so it says he has to serve at least half. Wait a minute. It says with the deadly weapon finding, he usually has to serve at least half of the sentence before he is even eligible for parole. Texas parole law says certain inmates, including those with a deadly weapon finding, are not eligible for parole until their actual calendar time served equals 1/2 of the sentence of 30 years, which is lesser, and not less than 2 years. So good time does not count toward the first parole eligible date. So if someone gets 10 years with a deadly weapon finding, the basic parole eligibility is 10-year sentence, must serve at least 5 actual calendar years before parole eligibility. Wow. But it does not mean automatic release after the 5 years. It only means that parole board can review the person. They could grant parole, deny parole, or set another review date. So in Texas, 10-year sentence with a deadly weapon finding does not automatically mean the person serves all 10 years, but it also does not mean they get out quickly. They usually have to serve half, so about 5 years before they are even eligible for parole. After that, wow. Oh, Lord Jesus, this thing takes many turns. So even if they find that, let me ask, hold on. So in the deadly weapon finding, the blade does not necessarily have to be over 5.5 inches. A knife can be treated as a deadly weapon depending on how it was used, especially if it caused death or seriously bodily injury. So in Allison's case, they don't even state how long the blade was, but the deadly weapon issue was not about whether the knife was legal to carry by length. It was about the fact that a knife was used in a fatal stabbing. That's why the deadly weapon enhancement mattered at sentencing. So if they bring up the deadly weapon enhancement in Karmelo Anthony case, he can still serve at least 5 years in prison. So Karmelo Anthony's best bet is to get to be acquitted. If he is not acquitted, then he is looking at some jail time. If the state really, really want to push it and they do the enhancement, which they haven't done it yet, but they can. And if they do, he is looking at some prison time. All right, so right now, the only charge he is facing is first degree. I asked, could the judge include a lesser charge for the jurors? And it says, yes, even if Karmelo Anthony is only indicted, charged with first degree murder, the judge can include lesser included offense for the jury to consider if the law and evidence supports it. Oh, but you know what? Hold on. So they have to actually bring it up, right? So right now it says, based on what's been reported so far, both sides has raised facts that could support a lesser charge, especially manslaughter, right? It says it hasn't been reported that the judge has actually included a lesser charge for the instructions, but the evidence give both sides something to argue. What supports a lesser charge right now is that the biggest facts that could support a lesser charge is the confrontation happened fast. It was a chaotic scene, and it was a split-second decision made during a confrontation. It was not a planned killing. The defense described Anthony as making a split-second decision out of fear. There was reported physical contact. So it was reported that defense argued that Anthony felt threatened and acted in self-defense after being touched by Austin Metcalf. So, and the defense witness said Anthony was distraught afterwards and repeated that he told Metcalf not to put his hands on him. So, Karmelo emotional reaction afterwards. It was reported that on body cam footage, it was shown that Karmelo Anthony was very emotional and he admitted to the stabbing. And he asked whether it could be considered self-defense. And then he asked whether Metcalf was okay. That could be argued as inconsistent with a cold, calculated murder. Even though it does not automatically excuse the act, it can be looked at that this was not intentional. All right. So legal experts are already discussing manslaughter as a possible defense strategy. It's been reported that legal analysts suggested that the defense may be trying to reduce the charge from first degree to manslaughter, especially because the self-defense claim may be difficult without Karmelo Anthony's testifying. All right. But what the state would argue against a lesser charge, the prosecutor could come in and raise the fact that supports murder instead of manslaughter. And they could say, listen, we had witnesses that said that he had the knife already in it, in his hand, unfolded in his bag before the physical contact even happened, right? I don't see how that can happen because what the fuck do they have like ESPN or CNN or whatever, the eye vision that you have to be able to see through the bag or whatever? Because how in the world do they know he actually had his hand on the knife in the bag? Even if his hands was in the bag, how do they know that it was on the knife, okay? And how do they know that he did not unfold the knife while his hand was in the bag? But anyway, so the state can say that he already had the knife at the ready before the physical contact ever happened. The state can also say the wound was directly to the chest area. Medical testimony described a fatal chest wound involving the heart, which helps the state argue deadly intent or at least an act clearly dangerous to a human life. And then the state could say witnesses disputed self-defense. Witnesses actually came up there and said they do not believe that Anthony acted in self-defense, describing request warning, rising tension, and a sudden attack. Okay. So the evidence that best supports a lesser charge right now is manslaughter, not criminal negligent homicide. So based on what's been reported, there are facts that could support a lesser charge. The defense can point to the fast-moving, chaotic confrontation, physical contact by Austin Metcalf, and Karmelo Anthony saying that he warned Austin, don't put your goddamn hands on me, all right? And then he was emotionally right afterwards saying, is he going to be okay? But the state can come back and argue this is still murder because he allegedly had the knife at the ready, just waiting to stab Austin in the chest. So if the juror gets a lesser option, manslaughter does seem to be more realistic than criminally negligent homicide, okay? Amoira, look up shock probation. I've looked that up already. He could take the stand. He could not take the stand, but he had to also bad spot to be. But jurors wanted to hear self-defense claims out of the person's mouth in court, like it or not. I do believe he should have took the stand. I'm not even gonna lie. She said, the shit is crazy. The shit is crazy. Have you heard that Hunter didn't show up to court and was supposed to be called by the defense? No, I have not heard that, Wendy. And I'm going to do 3 with these big old girls I got in front of me. What are you saying you're gonna do some time? Tamika. They did say they were looking for Hunter today. That's why court was held up after lunch, allegedly. If he goes to prison, I promise he would be protected. So do y'all have any more questions? Any more questions? Was this enough for you guys to kind of know what's going on so far? How do y'all feel? Let me look at the poll. I did a poll and I asked, who do you think is winning the argument right now? We have 414 votes and the prosecutor. So they said they think the prosecutor is winning their argument right now. 42% said the prosecutor is winning their argument. 36% said that it's a close call, and only 22% said the defense. So out of 415 votes, the prosecutor looks to a lot of people like they are winning their argument. Now, we did have people come over earlier that that was speaking in the chat. They may have did the voting because I have not seen 400 people in here, but we have 400 people that did the voting. So they could have just came over and voted and then dipped. You know what I'm saying? So, but nevertheless, she said, I heard a white guy on camera say if Anthony is found not guilty, he will unalive him himself. Grown man, so sad. Yeah, so I was standing by him when he said that. That's Jake Lang, okay? He did say that if he is found not guilty, that he will KI him himself. He did say that foolishness, you know? He said a lot of reckless, foolish things out of his mouth. I was right there when he said that foolishness. So anyway, it is 6:52. I have another live stream up at 7 o'clock. We will be talking about the good old Justin Dean and his rhetoric today. So I'm going to end this live. I hope that you guys got the updates. Well, not that you was wishing for, but I hope you got enough information to just stand fast and wait for the closing arguments tomorrow. I will be bringing you the updates on that as well. Thank you guys for the donations and tips to the channel. I will be going back live, like I said, in about less than 10 minutes on this same channel. So if you are interested in the other story that I'm going to be covering, please come back. That's why the black man should have saved his funky tail, should not have saved his funky tail. Which one you're talking about? Are you talking about Jake Lang? Yes, I read that they were looking for Hunter for 2.5 hours and he wouldn't take the stand. If I'm not mistaken, if he is subpoenaed to take the stand, I would think that he would have to. So it said that Hunter name definitely came up. because he was reportedly there and near Austin when it happened. But there has not been a confirmed report that the court was looking for him today or that he was expected to testify. So it's not confirmed. Not saying it was not, because, you know, the news ain't going, they're going to only provide what they want to be put out there. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they wasn't looking for him. It's just that the news has not reported it. Okay. That's a big difference. Sometimes we have to look at things, and the news will twist and turn how they want things to be presented. Okay. So the news has not reported that he was due to testify. I would think that if he was due to testify, that the defense attorney or his camp would have made some type of noise, right? I would think that. She said Jake Lang raised himself. Yeah, he was definitely there, and he was definitely saying a lot of craziness. Okay? So anyway, thank you guys so very much for pointing to this live stream. Thank you, Miss Carla. I appreciate you. Thank you, Miss Glenn. Thank you, Tanya, for becoming a member. I do appreciate that. Thank you, Miss Reed. She said, well, both sides. Oh, I didn't know what that meant. Thank you so much, 200K. Thank you, Black Beauty, for being a member of 16 months. She said, Amoira, I put a video in the group about the case. Could you please look at it and tell me your thoughts? I'll look at it, but I'm not going to say it right now, only because I have another story to talk about. And thank you, Rachel Ray. I do appreciate the love and the support. She said, what's your next story? My next story is on Justin Dean, y'all. Justin Dean went live today, and yeah, we're going to cover that. So if you would like to come back to the next live, I'm going to hop off of this live, and we'll restart that live in like less than 10 minutes, okay? Thank you guys so very much, and I will see y'all in a few. Hit that thumb button on the way out, and just stand fast for more coverage on the Karmelo Anthony case. I will be coming back tomorrow and giving you guys an update on the closing statements, the closing arguments, okay? This last comment from Taylor Made says, my brother lives in Frisco, Texas, and has a gym there. All I'm going to say is they are not for us. My nephew played football and was taken off because they don't like them. I'm praying. Wow. Okay. Let's pray. Let's pray. All right. Talk to you guys in a minute. Bye now.
Because they can't make $1 without mentioning down one of our names.
Jay! She kept talking about that family.
Hoes over there.
She kept talking about that family. 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 That family. She kept talking about that family. Talking about that family.
These motherfuckers don't be wanting to listen. Because they can't make $1 without mentioning down one of our names. Talking about it. That family. That family. That family.
Jay!
That family.
That family.
Talking about it.
Child, we finna talk about this with Amoira.